We're finally at the midterm of Learn Elixir, and I'd just like to take a second and say congratulations to all of you who have made it this far. In this video, I want to recap what we learned in the past 5 weeks. In the first week, we went over attitude and why it's important to never stop learning even after we finish this course off. We also went over how important it is to take every piece of information and knowledge you get with a grain of salt and make sure that you apply it correctly to your situation, and that there's not one correct solution for every problem. Another thing that we learned in this week is to get multi-person feedback and make sure you're validating your assumptions with multiple sources to form a validated opinion. Using these strategies can get you a lot of knowledge quite quickly and allow you to really progress in your career and become a great developer. In the second week, we went over installation as well as basic Elixir syntax and how to work with the language. We then talked about pattern matching and how it's unique to Elixir. And finally, we moved on to functional flow and keeping your code clean by maintaining the flow of your function calls. In week 3, we introduced Phoenix and used it to build a REST API as well as a GraphQL API. We also created some Phoenix web pages and set up Phoenix channels so that we could send and receive messages from a WebSocket, and finally set up GraphQL subscriptions so that we could push messages to the browser over a GraphQL subscription. In week 4, we learned about Ecto schemas and how we can create migrations in Ecto, as well as write and build queries with the API. We also talked about how we can compose those queries together and how to set up database relationships such as belongs to, has one, and has many inside of Ecto's DSL language. Lastly, we talked about integrating Phoenix with Ecto so that we can use a database to persist the information of our application. In our latest week, week 5, we learned about OTP process architecture and how it lets us crash safely by using supervisors to monitor our worker processes. We learned more about how OTP leads to Elixir being a fault-tolerant and resilient programming language, and we also learned how we can create more resilient code by writing unit and integration tests with EXUnit. We also talked about how to write those tests for REST APIs as well as GraphQL APIs. And finally, when things do go wrong during development, how to debug those problems with iex.pry, logger, and io.inspect. Now that we've learned all this, it's time to test some of these skills out and really get a feel for using these skills in a real project. So in our next video, we're going to go over our midterm project and what skill points we're trying to meet in order to create our project.